Hi everyone, I am so excited about today's art lesson because not only are we making art, we are going to change the world. This art project is a great one to do during November and December because to me, those are times to give thanks and to think of ways to help others. What better way to help less fortunate people in our community than to use our powers of art? This project is called the Empty Bowls Project, and it's an international project created to fight hunger. Did you know that 1 in 6 people in the United States face hunger? This means that they might not have the money to afford food or have access to food. This is terrible, and I want us to do something about it today. We're going to learn how to create a sculpture of a bowl using clay, and we're going to be learning a method called the COIL method. When we're finished, if we can, we're going to be donating your bowl to a fundraiser that's going to help people who are hungry. So our goal is to learn about how artists can impact their community. We want to create art to promote the awareness of hunger, and we want to understand how art can be used for a purpose, like making a bowl. So to start your empty bowl, you're going to need the following materials. The first thing is clay. The clay that we're using is basically mud that comes from the earth. We're going to be using a white earthenware clay, which is basically looks gray, but when it gets fired turns white. So when the clay is wrapped up in plastic, it is called plastic clay. When we use clay, we want to make sure it's not too wet or not too dry. So this clay is about 50% water and 50% minerals. When you mix clay with a lot of water, you create a type of mud called slip. Slip is really good for gluing pieces of clay together. So we are going to be using slip, but when you're working with the clay, you want it to be plastic. So there's basically 4 stages of clay. Now when I say plastic, it's not made out of plastic, but it's sticky and squishy and it's easy to shape. So clay works best when it's not too sticky and not too dry. Once clay starts to dry out, it turns hard or bone dry. This clay also is going to get fired, which turns it into stone so that it will last forever. So, like I said, to get started, we're going to be using plastic clay that comes out of the bag. So we want to make sure our clay isn't too wet or too dry, because when it is wet, it's very sticky. So I laid down a piece of cloth because the clay will not get stuck on the cloth. The first thing that you're going to do once you get your clay, you're also going to need, besides slip, a container of slip to share at your table, is you may also need a toothpick or a stick that's sharp to cut the clay or draw on the clay. And we also have some other clay tools like this plastic knife that's good for carving or scoring the clay. So once you have your basic supplies, you're going to take your piece of plastic clay, and we're also going to need a styrofoam bowl to put the clay into. So I'm going to take my piece of clay and I'm going to start rolling it with my hands. And what you're doing is just rolling it into a ball, just a basic ball shape. Once you have your ball, you're going to take your flat palm of your hand and you're going to flatten it. And now you're making something called a slab. A slab is like a flat piece of clay, and you don't want your slab too thick or too thin. You want it to be about the size of the bottom of your bowl. So once you have your slab, then you can actually stick it into the bowl. Now, once you have your slab, then you're going to start making your coils. So I'm going to move my bowl out of the way and take a piece of clay. And a coil is like a tube of clay. So I like to take both of my hands and start shaping the tube first. And then once it's about that thick, I can start actually rolling the coil. Now you want to roll the coil evenly, and you want your coils to be about the thickness of a pencil. So this coil is way too thick. Once I've gotten it long enough, I'm going to break it into 2 pieces, and then I'm going to keep rolling this one. You want to roll a lot of these coils.